Back to that discussion around Boris Johnson. He is to become the new Prime Minister of Great Britain. But then, as Ticky explains, they're facing some almighty challenges. The fractured party, of course, a fairly slender majority in Parliament, and inevitably Labor will, perhaps not this week, but when Parliament returns after their summer break, move a no confidence motion against him, you would expect. All of this while trying to negotiate a deal, and if not, having a Brexit with no deal by the end of October. Alexander Downer, longest-serving Foreign Minister, but also, not so long ago, our High Commissioner to London, is joining me now on the line. Alexander Downer, thank you very much. No great surprise in Boris Johnson winning against Jeremy Hunt the leadership contest, but how do you rate his prospects now in being able to do the things he says he can do?
Well, I think one of the things I'd say is that he will have much greater capacity to connect with the British public than Theresa May ever did. She was a very poor communicator, one of the worst communicators I've ever seen from a position of Prime Minister in a major country. And he, on the other hand, is the exact reverse. He's one of the best. So he will have a much greater capacity to rally the broader public. And I think actually that's going to be very important in the context of the negotiations with the European Union. Because, I mean, the European Union up until now has been able to get away with saying it's scandalous that the British won't accept the withdrawal agreement and they have to do what they're told, and there's no scope. This is an expression they use, which is very high-handed. There is no scope for further negotiation. Well, the simple point here is the British Parliament on 3 occasions has rejected the withdrawal agreement. And Boris is somebody who can simply make the point, look, there are things we can do and there are things we can't do. If the European Union's attitude is you have to do everything Europe's way and they don't care what domestic issues there are in the UK, Boris will then turn the tide against the European Union in terms of public debate. So I don't think it's going to be as straightforward for the European Union as it has been. And I don't think the simple arguments they're able to put that, well, Britain just has to accept what Theresa May agreed to and be done with it, that's going to wash anymore. So I think the whole environment, the whole political environment is going to be very different.
Well, it's an interesting point, a good point, that Europe also stands to lose if there's a no-deal Brexit. But finding that middle ground, that common agreement there seems to revolve around this Irish backstop question. Do you see a way through the differences between a Boris Johnson-led UK and Europe on this question?
Well, there's a simple solution to it, which would probably suffice with enough members of the British Parliament to get the agreement through the Parliament, and that is that there has to be some point in time, there has to be some point when the UK remaining in the customs union comes to an end. Now, this is what the argument is all about, and it's quite a complicated point. But the UK doesn't want to be trapped in the economic institutions of the European Union, yet have left the political institutions, that is, the decision-making institutions. And I don't know that this is always well explained to people. So at the moment, the UK is in the European Council, the European Commission, the European Parliament, and so on, and they're the institutions that make decisions. And it's in the customs union and the single market, you know, the free market of the EU. All the rules and regulations are made by those political institutions. The trouble with the withdrawal agreement is that there is no end point for the UK getting out of all of those economic institutions and regulatory regimes. There's only an end point for getting out of the political decision-making process. And not surprisingly, that's pretty unacceptable to a lot of people in the UK. It's okay to do it for a short period, for a transitional period, but to have that arrangement indefinitely, which is what the Theresa May agreement had the potential to do, that is never going to be accepted in the UK. So if the European Union is prepared to find an end point to those arrangements, then I'm sure that the Parliament will sign off on them.
Alexander Downer, thanks so much for joining us on this. It will be fascinating to watch over the coming weeks and months. Appreciate that.
It's a pleasure.